Common Filth Radio, episode 75. Common Filth Extra, episode 10, available now on Bandcamp. This week, it's free, so take advantage of that opportunity. It'll be free from now until next week's episode. That, of course, is on commonfilthradio.bandcamp.com, and you can pay if you want to, but you don't have to. And it won't bother me if you don't, so check it out. I got some stories lined up here, curated in a very deliberate way, but let's just take a look at the headlines. Let's go to Drudge Report. Let's find out what's happening in the world. Wanted in China, more male teachers to make boys men. Quote unquote, salvage masculinity. Well, don't they know that masculinity is very toxic, but at the same time it's fragile? Which I think is simply code for men don't spend enough money, therefore the machine has no use for them. We need to feminize everybody. The feminized mind, they have the market research. Girls spend more money. They pump more money into the economy, makes the shareholders very happy. This is from New York Times. The history class began with a lesson on being manly. Lin Wei, 27, one of a handful of male 6th grade teachers at a primary school here, has made a habit of telling stories about warlords who threw witches into rivers and soldiers who outsmarted Japanese troops. Men have special duties, he said. They have to be brave, protect women, and take responsibility for wrongdoing. I agree. Let's see where the New York Times takes offense. Let's find out where they object. Worried that a shortage of male teachers has produced a generation of timid, self-centered, and effeminate boys, Chinese educators are working to reinforce traditional gender roles and values in the classroom. In Zhengzhou, I know I'm not pronouncing that right, but whatever, a city on the Yellow River, schools have asked boys to sign pledges to act like quote-unquote real men. In Shanghai, principals are trying boys-only classes with courses like martial arts, computer repair, and physics. In Hangzhou, in eastern China, educators have started a summer camp called West Point Boys, complete with taekwondo classes and the motto, quote, we bring out the men in boys, unquote. This is what people are talking about when they say something like, oh, boys will be boys. They're not excusing rape, you fucking pervert. What they're saying is that boys have the impulse to be rowdy. There's nothing inherently immoral with rowdy behavior, but you need to rein it in or redirect it before it becomes something criminal, before they get bored. We have too many bored boys out there, which is why they get into cam whores. I found this recently. This person keeps retweeting my shit for some reason. They're a nerdy, atheist, goth, trans girl, can't wanna be cam whore. I have sampled many cam whores, and now I wish to be a cam whore. Can you imagine the loneliness, the isolation, the despair you feel on a daily basis to have your brain do that? This is what Chinese people want to avoid with their sons. If this article's any indication. They don't want their sons to become cross-dressing cam whores. Can you imagine if your kid became a cross-dressing cam whore? Could you live with yourself? No, I'm asking you. Could you live with yourself? Could you explain that to its grandma? Oh yeah, they're doing real good. They're making a lot of money from But yeah, boys have these impulses to do energetic things. And it's good to redirect those impulses in a way that benefits not just them, but society at large. Martial arts, a good gateway into a militaristic way of being. And if not, it's good for self-defense. Good for teaching self-respect, self-confidence. That should the time come, you'd be able to kick some ass. Obviously, you don't want to kick ass all the time, but, if you're not a soldier. But if the time comes, you'll be ready. Continuing. Education officials across China are aggressively recruiting male teachers as Chinese news media warns of a need to, quote, salvage masculinity in schools, unquote. The call for more male-oriented education has prompted a broader debate about gender equality And social identity at a time when the country's leaders are seeking to make the labor market more meritocratic. Share your toys, everyone. We want to be... Share. Just share. We want to be equal. Sharing. You people never grew up past the age of X. It also reflects a general anxiety about boys in Chinese society. While boys outnumber girls as a result of the long-standing one-child policy and a cultural preference for sons, they consistently lag in academic performance. Some parents worry about their sons' prospects in an uncertain economy, so they are putting their hopes in male role models, who they believe impart lessons on assertiveness, courage, and sacrifice. The view is that there is an overabundance of female teachers that has had a negative effect on boys, has perhaps predictably led to a backlash. Parents have accused schools of propagating rigid concepts of masculinity and gender norms, and female educators have denounced efforts to attract more male teachers with lavish perks as sexist. Well, look what women do in the classroom. All of the most horrible bullshit I ever heard in a classroom came from a woman teacher. And men who wrote novels about how they wanted to swap genders. No, I'm not fucking kidding. That's true to life. That's autobiographical. In Fuzhou, a city of 2 million colleges and universities have come under fire for relaxing admissions requirements and offering full scholarships and teaching jobs to young men. Zhu Rongfeng, a student at Fujian Normal University, wondered why women should not get similar benefits to enter traditionally male fields. If women go into architecture, shouldn't the government give them a free education too, she said. Why should men get this benefit? In some schools, teachers said the large number of female educators, especially in lower grades, had a positive influence on the students. Isn't that the same thing as single motherhood? We know how terribly that works out. We have a more intuitive sense of the children's needs, said Li Yu, 36, a kindergarten teacher in Fuzhou. It isn't the responsibility of schools to teach boys to be boys. It's the responsibility of parents. Well, that's true. I agree with that. But what is this woman doing as an educator? What kind of role is she assuming? If she's a kindergarten teacher, she's a fucking daycare employee. She's not a teacher. She makes sure that everybody has nap time. But maybe kindergartens in China are different. But really, what can you teach a 4 or 5-year-old? 5-6-year-old? But I'm done with this. Let's see what else is going on. Sheriff adding "In God We Trust" to patrol vehicles. That's a violation of separation of church and state. And then you ask them, which God? People hear God and they freak out. That's the demon escaping from them. That's my belief. Because it's not as if it's saying, "In Christ we trust." Again, how is this establishing a state religion? By putting "In God We Trust" on patrol vehicles. I don't understand. What else does the world have to offer us at this point in time? Socialism losing its sting, 42% of Dems favor. Well, yeah, because most of these people are government employees. Their check clears, and that's all they think. That's as far as their thought process goes. Wow, I have this really easy, well-paying job. Socialism's great. Sex toys of the future, talking dolls with personality, quote-unquote, perfect lover. And by what metric is it a perfect lover? Why should it be perfect? Whenever I hear that something is perfect, I hear, this thing does not force me to grow. Because that's what imperfections do. Being exposed to worldly imperfections shows you that you can't put your faith in man. You can't put your faith in man. No matter his color or his opinions. You can't do it, because man will let you down time and time again. That's by design. So if we know that man will let you down time and time again, man is imperfect, man is disappointing, we know that his definition of perfect is imperfect. Therefore, being exposed to the imperfections of the world, if we're honest with ourselves, we know that it is suicidal to put our faith in it. So instead of measuring ourselves by the imperfect standards of man, we strive towards a standard of perfection that is put in place for us by God. And that's all. That's all. Now let's get to the stories I had bookmarked because I want to read them in a very deliberate order. This is not innocent. This is by design. And this is from thehill.com. Islamic State in Iraq and Syria fighters have entered Europe disguised as refugees fleeing war-torn Syria. The head of Germany's domestic spy agency said on Friday, according to Reuters. Then we have repeatedly seen that terrorists have slipped in, camouflaged, or disguised as refugees, Hans-Georg Masson told ZDF television. This is a fact that the security agencies are facing. We are trying to recognize and identify whether there are still more ISIS fighters or terrorists from ISIS that have slipped in, he added. Masson also said the BFV has received more than 100 tip-offs about ISIS fighters among the refugee groups currently staying in Germany. Well, we are in America mostly of European stock. At a certain point, most of us were of Germanic ancestry. Not most, but a plurality. So, as they go, we go. And where are we going? What are we prioritizing? What are we prioritizing over, gee, I don't want to get beheaded. Remember the story about the police orgy in Belgium, I think it was? Remember that? You see, when people say this stuff to me like, oh, you're strawmanning this, they don't listen to everything I've done. And I don't expect them to. But if they're saying shit like this, they better. Because every conclusion I am reaching, every sentence, period, not question mark, that's what bothers people, I think. Then I'm like, this? No, I have come to these conclusions after several weeks. After story after story after story. After identifying a pattern of behavior, I say whites have a problem. And the problems are far more internal than external. Because we just read an external problem. Yeah, ISIS sneaking in. That's a problem. Every person within the jurisdiction of Western civilization should prioritize not getting beheaded, not getting their throat cut open. It's a pretty important thing, I think. But what's the attitude? Yeah, self-preservation is cool, but transsexualism, have you tried transsexualism? This is from the New York Post. ISIS World Tour coming to New York soon, and here is why. From Husband to My Wife's Wing Woman by Sophia Rosenbaum. This married couple are both looking for the same thing, Mr. Right. 3 years ago, Claire Atkins was stunned when her husband of 6 years, beefy bodybuilder Marcus Atkins, we'll get into bodybuilders later, told her he wanted to be a woman. She stood by her man. That's not a man. That is a maggot. She stood by her man as he sold off his motorcycle to pay for his new 36E breasts, changed his name to Celeste, and this past December completed the transformation with gender reassignment surgery. Now Celeste has a new role in Claire's life, as her wing woman, as they both prowl the English countryside for the man of their dreams. Yeah, that's a real great thing you're doing there. Hey, you want to fuck my wife? My ex-wife? I used to be your husband, but now I'm a lady. Oh, you couldn't tell? You couldn't tell that, from my giant arms, broad shoulders, and man jaw? See, it's written by the New York Post, but it's from England. They prowl the English countryside. They prowl the English countryside. I don't have to repeat myself, you know what I'm going to say. We're both very supportive and want each other to be happy, and find someone who is suitable for each other, Claire, 41, told Cater's news agency. Happiness. That's very important. Look at what people define as happiness. And you think that man's definitions of perfection are to be followed? Their definitions of happiness? Fuck that. But at least they're white. I mean, that's cool. I mean, what kind of women are you hanging out with? That you look at you fall for the trap meme. That viewant fell for the trap meme on Grindr. I met a beautiful 25-year-old virgin trap who is going to have my butt babies. But now I just have HIV. Are there really that many lantern-jawed women out there? Lantern-jawed white women? Apparently. Apparently, if you all are falling for the trap meme. But there's more. There's more, unfortunately. The former lovebirds enjoy going to local bars in Langworth, Lincolnshire, to scout possible lovers. And then there's a photo set. Claire Atkins and Celeste Atkins hold up a photo from their wedding day. What, they're still married? Oh, this is just so unbelievably upsetting. Celeste Atkins met her wife when she was known as Marcus. And Celeste is holding up a picture of Marcus. Healthy. Here's just a beautiful, beautiful trap here. Very, very nice jaw. Hashtag white traps are magic. Celeste was a beefy bodybuilder before undergoing gender reassignment surgery. And Zur is done up like Audrey Hepburn or Marilyn Monroe. You really can't tell the difference. She's just so beautiful. Is that the right pronoun? More? Yeah, 3 of 5. More pictures. Great. And by the way, I did use one of these. I used the top picture for a Tumblrista's title card. Celeste and Claire have stuck together after Celeste's transition. This woman, the actual woman, looks like she wants to die. And then there's oh god, from this, how could you mistake this for a woman? You guys got to click on this link. I will definitely remember to link to it below. And click through the photo set after the paragraph about former lovebirds. The good thing for the couple who are raising 3 kids. 3 kids? Daddy wants to be a girl now. He's not interested in teaching you how to navigate through life and all of its challenges. No, they want to go cruise the English countryside for some, whatever the fuck it is they're looking for, whatever it is they're prowling for. Mr. Right. We're looking for Mr. Right. Raising 3 kids. The good thing for the couple who are raising 3 kids is they never have to worry about fighting over the same guy. Our taste in men is totally opposite, said Celeste, 37. She normally doesn't agree with my choice of men, Claire added. She likes pretty boys, and I prefer them all grungy and wearing greasy overalls, so it's different. You also prefer them to cross-dress and trade in their motorcycle for some bolt tones. But it's not all about landing the next stud. Celeste couldn't have made it through her transition without her wife. Just listen to that sentence. That hurt to say. And this is now injected into the bloodstream of our culture. This is now what we accept as a given. And you think it's a good idea to bring kids into this shit. And you don't have a plan. Or maybe your plan is a part of this, in which case you are a part of the problem. I hope you burn in hell. And you will. You will. I don't have to hope. You will. I still love Claire to pieces. She's been my rock and pushed me so hard to face the challenges of transgender surgery. I can't thank her enough. And you thank her by indulging in your psychosis. Should I scroll down to see if they have comments on this? Do they have comments on this? No, they don't. And how thankful we should be, because comment sections are very transphobic, and we need to end anonymity, because visceral reactions, those are dangerous. They compromise the safety. What safety? Oh, safe spaces. We need to have a lot of safe spaces that include refugees. Oh, I'm sorry, ISIS fighters. No, they're not ISIS fighters, they're refugees. No, they're not refugees. And on and on and on it goes. These people don't compromise safety. The ones who have no problem with beheading you. But, transphobia, that's dangerous. That's a real danger. Next, from the local.se, Sweden's news in English. Swedes tell racists, "We are not your women." Swedes are hitting back following a series of far-right violent marches over the weekend which targeted asylum seekers and migrants. Swedes took to social media to hit back after violent far-right groups attacking refugee youths in Stockholm over the weekend handed out flyers and posted online messages claiming they acted to protect Swedish women. The hashtag, which translates to hashtag #NotYourWoman, was trending in Sweden on Sunday. How do you deal with this? How do you deal with these stubborn-ass bitches? You do them right, and they want to be done wrong. What does that tell you? I can tell you what it tells me, but I don't want to get in trouble. Anyway, it's trending in Sweden on Sunday with women posting pictures of themselves on Twitter alongside messages saying, "Not in my name." Quote, "I'm not your woman. I don't want your protection. You're the ones making me scared, worried, angry, and sad. My suspicions are confirmed." And another, "No racist will use me as an alibi to commit their acts of violence," wrote another. And another, "White people on the other side of the world call the terrorists on my streets Vikings." The campaign came in response to a series of violent weekend incidents in the Swedish capital, which began on Friday evening when gangs of up to 100 masked men marched through the city, beating up non-Swedes and handing out leaflets threatening further attacks. The march, the most extreme reaction seen so far to the murder last week of social worker Alexandra Mezer, has been linked to football gangs and far-right groups. According to Aftonbladet, am I emphasizing that right? Who cares? Newspaper, men were distributing leaflets on Friday evening with the slogan, "It's enough now," which threatened to give the North African street children who are roaming around the punishment they deserve. On Saturday, there were also reports of violence linked to an anti-immigration protest in Stockholm where at least 3 people were arrested for assaulting counter-demonstrators after members of neo-Nazi groups and hooligans gathered in the capital's central Norrmalmstorg Square. Norrmalmstorg. Just making sure I got that right. Meanwhile, refugee teenagers living in the city's 16 homes for teens and underage asylum seekers arriving in Sweden alone without their parents were told to stay inside following the violence. It's of course sad that we have to do this, but it's still important that we put the young people's safety first. Alexander Goransson, social services manager in Stockholm, told the Expressen newspaper. After Friday's attack, the Swedish resistance movement, a neo-Nazi group, issued a statement claiming that the groups had cleaned up criminal immigrants from North Africa that are housed in the area around the central station. Swedish men and women deserve security in their daily lives, and we therefore urge all others who see problems to follow in our footsteps, both in Stockholm and in other locations around the country. And this highlights the dangers of investing your loyalty in that which does not reciprocate. How foolish and suicidal it is to put your faith in man, or, as it were, woman. Putting your faith in something that prioritizes North African cock rather than preservation. And this story has a little bit of a follow-up. Same website, the story was published one day later. And now this is catching my eye. Most read, Swede finds 86-year-old condom at grandma's. No sense of boundaries. Anyway, this says, Stockholm's special squad to stop far-right mobs. A special force has been set up to stop violence by vigilante groups on the streets of Stockholm, after a weekend march saw a mob of up to 100 masked men beating young immigrants. A total of 14 people are being held on suspicions ranging from plotting assault to attacking police officers following Friday's mass violence. Police have linked the incidents to an anti-immigration protest held on Saturday, at which a number of people also reported they had been assaulted. It's important to get a picture of what happened and who the various actors are. Is it a trend or a one-off incident? Commanding Officer Christer Bergerson told the TT Newswire. He would not reveal how many officers would be a part of the special force, which will move around central parts of Stockholm to areas where they suspect that mobs may strike. Look, I wouldn't put it past a culture that is suicidal as this to call off the dogs when it comes to migrant rape. But this not your women hashtag, whatever the hell it was, is giving me some mixed signals here about what's really going on. Meanwhile, police are taking a closer look at the weekend violence to help prevent future incidents. Bergerson said that they are investigating information that some of the attackers were linked to football hooligan groups and others to far-right extremism organizations. Officers are also trying to track down the young refugees believed to be victims of the assaults, none of whom have reported the alleged attacks to the police. We have video footage that we're looking at to see if we can spot any crimes being committed. If we do, we will try to find both perpetrators and injured parties, said Bergerson. Debate. Sex attacks and fascism, not new Swedish norm. That's a different story. What is cultural suicide the Swedish norm? Letting your women make decisions, cock decisions. That's the norm. Being sexual perverts, that's the norm. Doesn't apply just to Sweden, so don't get offended. I understand if you belong to Sweden, it hurts a bit more to hear an outsider talking about it like this, but this is how Sweden is presenting itself to the English-speaking world. Friday's march was the most extreme reaction seen so far to the murder last week of social worker Alexandra Mezer, and saw vigilantes claiming they were acting to protect Swedish women. And then the article seems to repeat itself. On Saturday, at least 3 people were arrested for assaulting counter-demonstrators after members of neo-Nazi groups and hooligans gathered in the capital's central. Okay, I think we already read that. Ordinary Swedes were quick to distance themselves from the... This is what they want the ordinary Swede to be. Hashtag not your woman, because we, like most Europeans, are unhinged sex perverts. What? What do you call this? What else would you call it? Treachery, yes, but I think it speaks to their priority. Their priority is not, let's avoid getting beheaded. Their priority is, come. And these Nordic women, by saying hashtag not your woman, are saying, yes, this is a very charitable thing we're doing by spreading our legs for these people. And we like it. That's what it is. Let's hear from the victims of the parent rapes. I would like to hear from them. Sure, they might be traumatized, but you know what? Their story needs to be told. Because they could do a lot to convince Swedish women to keep themselves safe. Unless, of course, they're taking part in the Not Your Woman hashtag campaign. Could happen. I'm not saying it is, but it's a distinct possibility. We've established that this is a very suicidal culture. So it wouldn't surprise me, not a bit, if the victims are participating in this. Someone should find that out. Somebody should find out the names of the victims, get in touch with them, and let them tell their story. I'm waiting. Noble Swedes. Let's look at that. Sex attacks and fascism are not the new Swedish norm. At 6:40 a.m., I stepped off a night train at Stockholm Central Station after a weekend break in Swedish Lapland. If you've been reading some of the international media coverage about my adopted city in recent days, you'd be forgiven for thinking I was risking my life. One British newspaper, The Express, described the station as a no-go zone overtaken by all-male migrant mobs spreading terror by groping and robbing passengers and staff. Meanwhile, a writer for U.S. and opinion site Breitbart declared there was a rampant lawlessness and a now constant state of violence, terror, and fear. On Friday night, newspapers, radio stations, and television networks all over the world reported on a group of masked far-right demonstrators who appeared to be reacting to this presumed state of chaos. They beat up non-Swedes and vowed to give foreign teenagers living on the streets around Stockholm Central Station the punishment they deserve. So did I feel scared arriving back in the Swedish capital? Absolutely not. As I was heading to catch the blue subway line home, morning commuters were traveling calmly into work. A cleaner was polishing an already glistening white floor, and 2 security guards were strolling slowly out of a newsagent, sipping on their takeaway coffees. The main square outside was empty save for 2 Swedish teenagers sharing a cigarette. Sweden has spawned some alarming headlines lately. A teenager at a center for unaccompanied refugees near Gothenburg. What is unaccompanied refugee like their word for undocumented immigrant? Undocumented American, as they like to call it now. Anyway, unaccompanied refugees near Gothenburg was arrested on suspicion of murdering a 22-year-old woman who worked there. Police admitted covering up reports of multiple sex assaults at a music festival. Dozens of homes for asylum seekers have been set on fire. However, it is crucial that these news stories are viewed in context. Immigration and integration are becoming increasingly thorny issues in Sweden, and the country's reputation as a beacon for openness and tolerance has taken a battering. But neither sex attacks by migrants nor radical racism are the new norm. In 2015, as Sweden took in a record 163,000 asylum seekers, the number of reported rapes in the Nordic nation actually dropped by 12% compared to the previous year, according to figures released by the Swedish National Council for Crime Prevention in January. Meanwhile, petty thefts dipped by 2%. Is anybody out there having their bullshit alarm set off? I'm not saying that it is. I'm asking. So let me know. As for personal safety around Stockholm Central Station, police were unable to immediately provide the local with the number of reported assaults over the past 12 months. But a press officer, Lars Byström, insisted that tourists and residents alike should not feel under threat. Normally, Stockholm is not a dangerous place to visit or to take a walk outside in. I think it is rather safe, he said. Asked why one anonymous officer recently told Swedish television that he would not let his own family go near the station, he described his colleague's comments as a little bit strange. A very unscientific straw poll of my female friends in Stockholm on Monday revealed that no one had experienced or even heard of other women being groped by refugees in the station in recent months, other than in media reports. But plenty could talk about being felt up by drunk Swedes on a night out. News stories that hone in on a rise in support for the far-right Sweden also deserve a number of caveats. Neo-Nazi-inspired activity such as that witnessed on Friday in Stockholm does appear to be on the rise. Yet a report by Swedish anti-racist foundation Expo last year suggested that membership of fascist organizations in Sweden has fallen. It is well documented that support for the anti-immigration Sweden Democrat Party shot up in 2015, with 22% of people asked by pollsters Novus saying they would pick the party in December. But while for many international newspapers these statistics slot neatly into the theme of a lurch to the right across Europe, Sweden's unique political climate also needs to be taken into consideration. I don't know why I'm reading this. I just thought the headline was interesting, but we're too deep, so we'll keep going. Until recently, all of Sweden's center-right opposition parties strongly backed the country's open borders, alongside the Social Democrat Green coalition government. Voters who were unsure about rising immigration had no one to turn to except for the Sweden Democrats. Yet in the past few months, many of the traditional parties, including the governing Social Democrats and the main opposition moderates, have adopted stricter policies on asylum and immigration, and support for the country's nationalist party is appearing to stall. SD's following dropped by 2 percentage points in Novus's latest survey last month, rather. On Sunday, thousands of Swedes turned to social media to voice their frustration that the party said it was protecting Swedish women from immigrant attacks when its members handed out flyers in Stockholm over the weekend with the hashtag #NotYourWoman trending on Twitter. And then there's some old woman wearing peace sign glasses, saying, "No, I am definitely not your woman." Well, you heard it from her. So we've had evil right-wingers, and it's native Swedes that are worse. Well, again, somebody's going to have to tell me whether that's true or not. But whether it's true or not, look at what your women prioritize. Look at what English men prioritize. There is something very, very, very wrong with these people that you need to be careful of. Quit putting your faith in people. Look how they return it. Hashtag not your woman, and I have 3 kids, I'm going to saw off my penis. And the countless other examples I have read on this show, that I've read while recording. Look, I get it. It's sometimes too much to listen to, but tough shit. This is what exists out in the real world. And it would be dishonest for us to not confront it. I was going to do Reddit questions, but on the subreddit r/commonfilth, this was posted an hour ago. That's what it says as of this recording. An actress goes on TV and talks casually about eating corpses' parts and being on acid. From The Couch, some interview thing show from France. And the actress is Beatrice Dalle, or Daly, whatever. Beatrice, we'll just call her Beatrice. We're not going to use her last name, that's respectful. And we're not going to respect cannibals. And the interviewer is known as Jay, Marc-Olivier something. Journalist, you put that in the past after all. Beatrice, here you're talking about an example, yes. I don't go into morgues at night with my friends. Journalist, you don't do any more trafficking of body parts. Beatrice, oh, we did it twice or thrice to earn a few bucks. Journalist, you're talking about that with some sort of detachment. That's what interests me. It's that never you, and then she interrupts. Well, nobody ever came to complain, you see, laughing. She's laughing while she's saying this. Journalist says, no, but you cutting off corpse parts, that never frightened you? Little kid you were? And she responds, here's where you need to be listening very closely now. She says, no. Once we even made ourselves a dish. We wanted to eat him because we were on acid. They were high on acid. So, we can cut off his hands if we think about eating him. Journalist, and you ate him? Beatrice says, oh, we tasted it. He asks, what was it? It was some ear, laughing. Oh, come on, it's no big deal. The dude anyway, he didn't complain. He didn't even know I ate his ears, laughing. Public laughing, audience laughing. And then our loyal Reddit follower here. Tristamande. I know I'm not saying that right, but you deserve a name drop for unearthing this for us. 5 interesting things. And this is after the interview, obviously. Talking about being on acid with no trace of shame or regret. Yes, very bad. Talking about organ trafficking with no trace of shame or regret. It's getting worse. Talking about cannibalism with no trace of shame or regret. I don't know how you get much lower than that. Man, she says, he wasn't live to complain, so it's okay, and the public finds it funny. So we've gone from the British Isles to Sweden to France. What an interesting vacation we've taken here on this episode of Common Filth Radio. No, it's great. European vacation. Who needs to go to Europe when you can listen to this episode of this show? I don't feel well. I'm not talking about in a sick kind of way, but in some other kind of way. This is the kind of feeling that requires me to take a break to go off somewhere and pray. Pray to God that there is a right answer to this. That, for lack of a better word, justice will be done in some way, somewhere. Because my imagination fails me right now. Is this satirical? And if so, what's it making fun of? Because I don't see the joke. Just look what happens when you allow people to be their own shepherds. You allow the sheep to be their own shepherds. They start eating each other. Okay, let's make our way to the question and comment thread. What do you think of Sargon of Akkad? Well, if we listed our opinions on XYZ subjects, if you went down the line, if you went down the list of whatever it is there is to have an opinion on, we probably wouldn't agree on everything or a whole lot, but you know what? I don't have a problem with them. And even if I did, I wouldn't be sitting here talking shit about them. You gotta have professionalism. And I think that starting rumors, starting shit with people, just for the fun of it, is very unprofessional. Sargon of Akkad, I've never, in my interactions with him, never ever experienced that, so I have nothing bad to say about him. He sent me some significant amount of traffic back in September, I think it was. He included a couple of segments from one of the Vine marathons and linked to my stuff. People can disagree with each other and still remain professional with one another. Still remain adult, instead of acting like a developmentally stunted nutcase. Be professional, be adult, and you will be surprised at how far that will take you. Okay, next. Hello, CF. I hope you are keeping well and avoiding damage on your soul from staring into the abyss. Once again, I come to you, for I have seen into the abyss while reading the news to distract myself from work at the Goy factory. Again, when I got home and looked further into this story, the truth was much more insidious than the media would have you believe. The abyss is everywhere. It's a matter of acknowledging it rather than seeing it for something else. Anyway, there's been a royal commission into child abuse going on here in Australia, and it's uncovered some vile acts, many of which occur through gross negligence of the apathetic, filthy commoner. Think Spotlight here. If you've not seen that film, you should. It's rather good. One of the cases the commission looked into was that of a quote-unquote man named Shannon McCool. He was sentenced last year to 35 years in jail, the longest sentence for a pedophile ever meted out by South Australia. Brace yourself. You can find the links at the bottom of this post, but there's a lot to read, and naturally the most interesting facts are seldom published in the mainstream articles anyway. So allow me to summarize. He spent years raping children while he worked in the government department, Families SA, one as young as 18 months old. Bizarrely enough, after this infant was raped by this man two presumably basic bitch social workers who have got to put their social studies degrees to use somewhere, two female social workers had changed the infant's diaper to note that the child's groin looked, quote-unquote, very red, irritated, and not right, unquote. After seeing some of the gash blown out 20-something whores have to offer, I shudder to think what kind of damage an adult could do to an infant in such a manner. Truly disgusting. His abuse went on for years while he hid in plain sight, paid by the taxpayer. All the while getting away with it after abuse was reported to his supervisors and colleagues by some of the victims. His supervisors did nothing about these complaints cited publicly. They simply did not believe anyone would go through the 6 months waiting period necessary for this job. Less publicly, the commission has found reports have surfaced that they were high. There is little in this world more apathetic than a stoner or opiate abuser. I personally believe these allegations, as it is frequently cited that McCool gave training classes to other Families SA employees, during which he stated, quote, "You could be sitting next to a pedophile and not even know," unquote. It must take a special kind of apathy to be this close to evil and not sense something is off. But it wasn't just garden variety pedophilia this vile beast engaged in. He was running one of the biggest online communities for pedophiles in the world, posting his unholy deeds online regularly, funded by taxpayer money. I learned all this reading an article at work, and I had my suspicions about what might actually be going on, but dared not search for it on my Goy computer in case anyone realized what I was looking for. What kind of bottom-of-the-barrel reprobate could commit such heinous crimes against those of us least guilty of sin? Who could hide in plain sight and get away with it for so long? Why, a natural aristocrat, of course. Who else? You're right, who else? There are many different photos of this seemingly normal-looking guy in the articles you can search for. One of them is particularly telling. It shows McCool looking into the camera with a man with his arm wrapped around him, kissing him on the cheek. Naturally, none of the front-page stories on this stuff will make mention of the fact that when he indulged in adults, it was with boyish-looking men. This must not be made known to the public. That surely would sour the positive public opinion they have fostered in the media, and Western civilization at large. I'm not kidding you when I say that this is what your children worship. There is no group in Western civilization that is as far beyond reproach as they are. This is a fact. Nobody has ever produced a shred of evidence to contradict what I'm saying. The most they could say is, it doesn't matter. Because it's done by white people, so it doesn't matter. And they say it doesn't matter because, only point something percent of the population engages in it. What they don't factor in is their victims, the people they interact with, the people they victimize. Those victims still exist long after the crime is committed. And they don't factor in the amount of people that the victims will go on to interact with. They don't factor in the amount of dysfunctional relationships that they will have as a result of their abuse. But dysfunctional relationships that people have in the future, their inability to relate to the opposite sex, that can't be quantified, so it's not real. To your autistic, inbred, mongoloid, fetal alcohol syndrome fucks, it doesn't matter because you can't point to a chart. But reasonably, how can I expect people with no socialization to place any value on avoiding social dysfunction? Anyway, where did I leave off with your comment here? Okay, here we go. But going beyond the surface here reveals similar stories of babies being adopted out of Thailand to be raped by gay pedophiles right here in Australia. Though we mustn't draw connections here. Yeah, I believe I've covered a similar story. Not covered, but read a similar story about these two Australian guys adopting a Russian child and how, the Australian media was like, oh, too bad dads are better than none or whatever. And then it reveals that this Russian boy they adopted, they were making pornographic films of him. And they're involved in this child prostitution ring. Really, really upsetting information. Continuing here. Reports of this kind of indecency have been covered up. Unofficial reason cited is that it may harm the ability of gay couples to adopt from overseas if the Goys find out that many pedophiles enjoy adopting children nobody cares about or monitors from the third world. Oh no, anything but that. We can't harm the ability of that because, at best, gay couples, mutual masturbators, treat their children like fashion accessories. At worst, well, here's what we have. McCool's stint as a baby fucker in Adelaide was not his first either. Allegedly, from two separate independent sources, he had similar allegations made against him in Queensland, but nothing came of them as he countered his accusers by labeling them as homophobes. Again, beyond reproach. Proof upon proof upon proof. Naturally, McCool's proclivity for man-ass has not been mentioned in a single mainstream article, lest the media's homophilic propaganda campaign of the last 20 years be undone. I don't think it would be undone. People just say, oh, not all, and they'll leave it there. Because they've built their social circle, their socialization around Look, I have a gay friend. I have a gay friend, and they're a lot better than straight people. That's a quote from an actual comment I read on Common Filth Extra episode 10 that I received in the last week. One government spokesperson actually had the gall to mention that just because McCool had been convicted did not mean that a massive settlement would be guaranteed to be paid to his victims in the future. Reminder, most of his victims are too young to understand why their reproductive and expulsionary organs and lower intestines have been so badly damaged and will not be mentally capable of being part of a lawsuit for many years. I wonder if that payout would be more of a certainty if it eventuates that he has paused these poor children. It is also interesting to note that society's reaction to this case has been a call to ban all men from caring for children. This came from the Premier of South Australia himself. Do you think if they knew the truth that they could bring themselves to say the same about the natural aristocrats? No, because they themselves are a part of the natural aristocracy, or their careers hinge upon their subservience to the natural aristocracy. I wouldn't be surprised if that's why they're in positions of power in the first place. I sometimes wonder if I have become a paranoid right-winger like some people accuse me. Then I pull back the curtains of society only to have my soul crushed by a demonic assault from the abyss. Welcome to 2016, guys. And remember, don't call it a grave. This is the future you asked for. And if you want to check out this comment, go to the subreddit r/commonfilth on reddit.com. Look at the question and comment thread for episode 75, and all of the links are here that the listener referred to. Next, do you think Obama is gay? Yeah, I do. His children are adopted from Morocco. His wife is a male to female transsexual, and his relationship with Reggie Love, amongst many others. Not to get too conspiratorial here, but look how soon Joan Rivers died after she called Michelle Obama a tranny. I think it's suspicious. I don't think it's out of the ordinary that an older woman dies out of the blue, especially of her age, but I have my suspicions. Next. Hey CF, I'm excited to know that Tumblr Raw Volume 4 is coming, and I'm sure it's going to be really good. As always, here are the questions for this week. What is your stance of eugenics or ways to use selective breeding in order to have genetically better kids? I think good genetics help, but it's far from a guarantee. Ronald Reagan had kids, or at least a son that I know of. His son turned out to be a fuckwagon. Patrick Ewing had a son. Didn't make it very far in the NBA. And it goes the other way as well. There are kids who ended up being better than their athlete fathers. Having good genetics, it's far from a guarantee, and you can point to countless examples of that. Like I've said before, a common comment I get on the Vine marathons is, well, at least they won't procreate, even though these kids themselves are a product of procreation. And these kids are stupid and irresponsible, so they'll get pregnant and be like, oh, my daughter, no, I'm not going to gender my baby, that's really creepy. I pushed you out of my vagina, but actually I have no gender. That's what's going to happen. That's already happening. 2. What is a culture that you admire and appreciate their contributions that is not white? Well, I would say Argentina, but, Argentina's white. What else? Nothing comes to mind right now, sorry. What happens when we have 1,000 cuckolds, 400 race mixers, 80 trans kids, and 8 pause pigs, and when we add those numbers? Well, if you invert a few of those numbers, trade places with a few of them, you'll have certain fringe ideological movements. On episode 73, you talked about the problem with the men who go to the gym and how some of them have a fetish or attraction to muscles. How deep is this problem and how would you elaborate on it? And also, if it's possible, read some of the shit that you've seen on Fit. Not necessarily if you don't want to, though. I've only been on Fit once, and on the first or second page, I was curious. I wanted to see what it's all about. If that dog could shut the fuck up, that would be great. Yeah, there's a thread about this guy who's like, oh, my girlfriend, apparently she got raped. And then the more details he provided, the more likely it seemed that she cheated on him, felt regret, and panicked and said, oh, he actually raped me. When really he got cheated on. But People who are obsessed with the male aesthetic, men who are obsessed with the male aesthetic, are homos. Plain and simple, they are homos. And I get not wanting to be a fat slob, but after a certain point, it's not really functional anymore. You have all these muscles, but what are you doing with them? It's not going to help you relate to the opposite sex any better. So what are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, you decided to lift. Oh, now you're getting a butt plug. Now you're obsessed with how your own cum tastes. Both things I've read. Screenshots that other people have posted on the various Facebook pages I've seen. Do you hear the barking dog? Or is my face blocking it? But yeah, people who are obsessed with achieving an ideal male aesthetic or have an idea of what that should be and they want to achieve it. Why? Again, women are not visually oriented. Men are visually oriented because women's fertility is based upon their appearance. You can look at a woman and determine if she's fertile or not based upon whether or not she has breasts and whether she has wide hips or narrow hips. This is why men are visually oriented. We need to be in order to find a suitable woman to carry on our genetics. Whereas with a woman, it's a little more complicated. Sure, looks can get you started. If you're good looking to a woman, that could get you started. But if you're socially retarded, if you're emotionally retarded, you're not going to get far at all. It's ridiculous to fixate upon the male aesthetic. Because the male aesthetic, if you're doing it right, is a product of doing something else. Let's say you're a boxer. You have to train a lot. You have to put in a lot of work in order to be physically fit to fight. In other words, the aesthetic is a byproduct of some practical utility. And people who fixate on that aesthetic on its own, no, it's no surprise that they turn out to be fucking perverts. It did not surprise me to read that message, that email, saying, I get hit on at the gym by these guys who want to sodomize me. Doesn't surprise me at all. It's very disturbing. It is disturbing. Who the fuck wants that? Ridiculous. And 6, which is the least worst of these places? San Francisco, New York City, Pozland, Portland, California, or Florida? Well, San Francisco isn't California. The only one of those I've been to is San Francisco. It just fucking sucks. Hate it. Also, want some weed, bro? Yeah, weed, dude. Weed, dude. Do you know it shrinks tumors? It shrinks tumors, dude. It helps me relax. I have anxiety. Weed, dude. 7. Have you seen the stuff from Uncuck the Right? If so, what do you like about it? Haven't. Have not yet. Hey, CF, I'm sad to inform you that you are no longer allowed to react to the degeneracy you talk about on your show or you'll get sued. Yeah, the Fine Brothers thing. They lost a couple 100,000. If you look at their all-time chart, it keeps growing other than the recent malady they've had. And when the whole, we're licensing React videos thing went down, I had never watched any of their material. I've heard of them. I know that they promote their gross social ideology of buggery and child abuse. I knew that much. But when they started bleeding subscribers, I decided to watch a couple of their videos to see what 14 million people, now it's like 13.6 or something like that. However many people are watching this, what they see in it. So I watched it. It is the most insipid, worthless kind of entertainment I've ever seen. Says nothing other than, prevailing social attitudes, pop culture. There's absolutely nothing interesting about it. There's no personality, there's no emotion, there's no soul. So, what I've said before about people being socially retarded and emotionally retarded, there are a lot of those people out there, people who are dead inside, so it's dead entertainment for dead people. And I guess it's not too surprising that millions of people find value in it. I tweeted about them earlier in the week, and I used them as an example of why greed is the stupidest sin. Because what they did is essentially a product of greed. Other people are doing React videos, oh no. Let's get them to do it under our license instead so we can make money from that. completely greedy. How much, not how much, how many millions? How many millions are they making from ad revenue a year? And if they aren't making millions from ad revenue alone, I'm sure they have they're doing consulting. I think they're on TV even, so they even have a TV deal. They're getting paid from a network. And it's not like they have a ton of overhead. If they do, they're fucking stupid. Making videos should require very, very little overhead. And even if they do have a lot of overhead, they're still making an obscene amount of money relative to the amount of effort they're putting in. And they can't feel blessed enough to make a living doing a nothing job that demands nothing of them physically or mentally, intellectually. The only thing they're putting in is time. That's the only thing they're investing. And they don't have the self-awareness to realize what we're doing here, not really that important. It's a blessing that we're making this much money. Let us save every penny we possibly can and live off of our savings for the rest of our lives after a certain amount of time. I mean, if they're taking home $1 million a year, let's say, and that's after all the overhead, taxes, whatever, they split it both ways, $500,000 a year. If they're single guys, if they don't have any children or anything, I think $50,000 a year as a single guy is more than enough money. So let's say they're making $500,000 a year each, individually a year, and their personal expenses are $50,000 a year, which again, very generous for a single guy. That's 10 years of just personal expenses. You take that home, $500,000 a year, each year for 7 years, you could live the rest of your life off of that. But apparently that's not enough. Again, greed is the dumbest sin. Next. ACF, first off, just wanted to say thank you for all the great work you've done. The stories you cover both tear at my soul and also inspire me to become a better person. To stand above the pause and filth that permeates the modern West, if only for my own sanity. Not sure if you can help with my question, but I'll give a TLDR version to save some time as you have other things to get on with. I consider myself fortunate to have found a good woman to spend my life with. She's a hardline traditionalist and red-pilled on pretty much every subject. We recently found out that we're expecting our first child, a daughter, and while I'm overjoyed, I can't help but worry about what sort of life and culture her and any further children we have might grow up in. We lead a traditional life. I own a farm and she's my housewife, and we couldn't be happier with it. But I'm not sure how the walls in this little island of sanity I've carved out will hold up when the modern world comes calling. I'm Canadian and my wife is Dutch, so with both of our nations buried neck deep in pause, I'm not sure what's the best course to take in raising my daughter. We've decided that our children will be homeschooled and minimal exposure to media from a young age, and we'll have our traditionalist Catholic Church and its activities be our kids' social circle. However, I'm worried about the state trying to force my children to go to public school or monitor what we teach to them, given how draconian organizations like Child Protective Services, the Education Board, and the Human Rights Council here are in Canada. And all the stories I've heard of them taking kids away from traditionalist homeschool families that don't toe the natural aristocrat narrative. It's my deepest fear. And if some dyed hair problem glasses wearing sow took my children, I'd probably snap and go full Breivik. If you have any advice or recommendations to help with raising a pause-free kid, or any of your listeners who are parents do, I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all, congratulations. I hope your wife has a safe pregnancy, and I hope your daughter comes out healthy. I think my listeners here will have to chime in because I am not a father, so I don't know. I cannot know. It would be dishonest for me to sit here and tell you what you should do. But what I can say is that you should ask God. You are God-fearing people, and I don't think God will steer you wrong. Just listen. Listen to what God is telling you, and you'll be good. I'm sure that God would very much like to protect you from the obese, blue-haired cunts who do nothing other than steal from the taxpayer and make decent people, the lives of decent people, miserable. Next. ICF, in the past few months, I have had several conversations with friends and acquaintances about starting a family. All of these persons have been between the ages of 22 and 28, making them standard millennials. Every conversation went the same way. My friend would reject the idea of having kids, usually using the same three arguments. First, they argue that they are not ready to have kids emotionally, aka fear of failure. Then they argue that kids are too much work or too expensive, aka kids are competition for my fun time. And finally, they argue that the world has too many people, aka watch me virtue signal. Here's my question. What do you think the West will look like in 15 to 20 years when an entire generation is collectively waking up to the fact that they have missed their biological opportunity to procreate? Is our corrupted culture powerful enough to prevent this epiphany, or will biology win out? You are doing great work. I feel a deep sense of calm hearing you state facts clearly and without equivocation. These days, not even the right wing can speak without quibbling over every detail. P.S. In my most recent conversation about having kids, the young woman with whom I was speaking described her desire to spend her life traveling and having experiences. Millennials have perfected the consumerism of their boomer parents. To avoid the evidence that they are empty consumers, they purchase experiences instead of objects. This millennial girl even admitted as much, but of course she had some empty sophistry handy to justify herself, saying, life is just consumerism anyway, right? Well, to those that don't know how to create anything, I guess it is. And what is left when you consume something, like literally? You eat a sandwich, you eat a steak, you eat a salad, what's left? What results from consuming? Shit! And that's what the world will be in 15 to 20 years. Shit everywhere. And who's going to clean up the shit? The people that escape the teachings, the people that says that shit's gay. I'm not having any of that. However many of those are left. They will burn all the shit, and maybe we'll be cleansed of our sins finally. No, we won't be cleansed of sins. We will be cleansed of the sinful. At least, the current iteration of it. Next. Why are there so many fanfics and fan art of everything when it comes to entertainment? If people like a setting or characters, why can't they just create their own? People seem to just be derivative and parodying everything nowadays. I'm not saying you can't do anything derivative, but creating fan works for a living isn't realistic, and these artists can actually try and make original things, but they don't. By the way, do you think there's intrinsic things to a lot of these fictional universes that breed autism and weird fetishes / LGBT? What can owners of property like Sonic, My Little Pony, and Pokemon do to stop their fans from making weird fetish stuff? I note the things that seem to get these autistic fan bases usually seem to make easily multicolored characters for people to easily identify with and find their own unique identity. Do you think this is intentional on the creator's part because things like Five Nights at Freddy's and Undertale seem to have come out of nowhere and caught on like wildfire for no reason? Was this planned by the creators? Does including gay characters and things instantly mean it's degenerate, or can gay characters be used well, even if the work doesn't outright come out against homosexuality? Absolutely fucking not. If they're including it and they're not saying anything about it, they are either promoting it or condemning it. And guess what you don't see? You don't see a condemnation of it, so yeah, it is degenerate. Or whatever the fuck word you want to use for it. Why do you like Vaporwave when it seems to be all about consumerism? Because I like it. I can't explain it, and if I were able to explain it, I would like it less. You just gotta let some things be sometimes. Nothing about it offends me, and I like a lot of what comes out of it. So, and as for why there are so many fan artists, fan fictions, a universe that somebody creates provides a boundary that modern society does not provide. I forget who said this, but somebody said once, the enemy of art is the absence of limitations. And so you have this very large scene of meta art based on pre-existing properties. You have this number of Pokemon. You have this number of ponies from My Little Pony. When there are too many choices, you don't make a decision. When the choices are infinite, you are paralyzed. And this is why you see a lot of it. And why people have an autistic obsession with certain properties. They have nothing going on for themselves. And they might have some weird pre-existing mental thing that that allows its growth or mutation. For example, Christian. He was born to parents way too old to fuck. So he's got autism. He's got autism because people who shouldn't have been breeding bred. So with him being autistic, him being very handicapped mentally, he needs that structure, that rigid structure in which to work. Now, not everybody is born with autism because their parents were too old at the point of conception. It's just they have nothing going on for themselves. So they become isolated and they start believing very, very, very strange things about themselves, developing these very strange sexual fetishes based on whatever, the things you mentioned. And there you go. All of these things can explain the prevalence of fan art and fan fiction. Next. Hey CF, hope you're doing well. I met a kid in high school I've been friends with for a few years. When we first met, I was a pretty average post-millennial atheist liberal and all that bullcrap. Except that I had a desire to be red-pilled about things. Well, I've been seeing that word a lot, and I should say again, because I haven't said in a while, that I don't like the term red pill, blue pill. It's overly simple, and the people that use it, I don't like it. But you probably didn't know that, so I'm not going to hold it against you. Okay. Over the past year or so, I've been waking up more and more, even to the point of considering coming back to the faith. The problem is that this friend, like nearly all of the other friends I've made, is a degenerate, and it's becoming harder and harder to ignore. We've started getting into arguments where he defends the natural aristocracy, pushes moral relativism, and says the only point of life is to be happy, whatever that means. Yeah, like I said earlier, man's definition of perfect, man's definition of happiness, very destructive. Because there's no basis. There's no measure. It's funny, he believes in moral relativism, yet believes in objective happiness. Or absolute happiness, rather. Ridiculous. But it's not too surprising that kids are contradictory and believe crazy things. You think I'm any exception? I've talked about it before. Pretty much everything I talk about on this show, I once held the opposite view. At some point in the timeline. There are things I've even changed my mind about during the course of this show. There are people who I've changed my mind about, certainly. But continuing with the question. So I have two questions to ask you. First, is it even worth it to argue with him anymore? And if so, how do you go about convincing a person like him that we have a higher purpose than pleasure seeking? And is it a good idea to cut ties with people like this? Part of me wants to, but I'm worried I won't have many friends left at the end. Thanks for doing your show. It means a lot to me. Look, you're not going to have any friends left at the end anyway. The friendships you have at this point in your life are very transient. You're going to drift apart for any number of reasons, including the one you're talking about right now. Even if you didn't have these feelings, it would happen eventually. That's just what happens when people grow, or in this case, regress. So don't worry about it. And don't worry about convincing these people who are under the influence of Satan. Don't take it personally. You can't reason with them. And there's nothing you can do to stop it. And you might have some regrets about carrying that out, about putting that into practice, but again, remind yourself, there's nothing I can do about this. They chose this path. I didn't choose this path for them. There's nothing that I could say or do to convince them otherwise. Some people are just born to lose. Some people are meant to fall flat on their face. And you need to let it happen. If it doesn't happen, how could he possibly learn? Next. Hey CF, what do you think homosexuals should do besides finding Jesus or killing ourselves? Have I ever said to kill yourselves? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I've said that. At least to my listeners who have expressed some sort of repentance about it. Continuing. Not that long. I find nearly everything about homosexuality and the gay community horrible and disgusting, but I'm pretty darn gay. What do? Realize that this weird sexual thing going on in your head is a result of some sort of trauma, and you need to trace yourself back to that trauma, realize what's causing it, and start to repair it. Maybe the trauma is you live a severely isolated life. Maybe the trauma is you were raped as a child, or you were abused otherwise as a child. And I'm not saying this to say that these things happen to you. It's just from everything I've ever read, every story that I've ever read on the show on the subject, that seems to be the cause of it. I know the causes of it, but I don't know the cure. There's only so much I can say because you're struggling with something I don't know what it's like to struggle with. So it's a guess when I say deal with whatever trauma has led you to this point. Identify it and deal with it, and see where you are from there. It can't hurt, but continuing to be a sodomite can hurt. If you've listened to any of the Common Filth Extra episodes, those are recent examples of how it can hurt. Guys who have spreadsheets, and they use these spreadsheets to keep track of how many pause loads they've taken. That was the one thing I didn't read on the episode. I was actually going to save that for something else, but I think I'm going to go back and read that. Make a return to the that place, that forum with like 40,000 people on it. Yeah, the forum that I read through, where I found that spreadsheet thing amongst many other beautiful displays of love, it has 43,000 members, which was about the same amount of members that r/cuckold had at the time that I recorded that one. Where there's one, there's many. Where there's 43,000, shudder. How does one follow Jesus? Should I start going to church again, even though I feel really out of place when I'm at Mass? Read the Bible and start living as he lived. You won't ever be perfect. Never. But that's why perseverance is important, because you can get close. And to be closer to Christ-like perfection is better than being far from it. Next, after reading a post by somebody else on the subreddit, I got to wondering, what is your opinion on fetishes and the people who have them? From the tamest, quote-unquote tamest, to the incredibly disgusting. Is it a sin? Also, as a side note, I've been listening to the show for a while now, and after I'm done listening to it on YouTube, I downloaded it so I can listen again while I'm on my way to work. Is this alright with you, or should I just listen to it again when I get home? Thanks again for answering all these people, and I'm glad somebody's out there still fighting the good fight. Yeah, I have no problem with it. If you want to download my stuff, go ahead. Because I get it, it's not reasonable to sit at your computer for, an hour and a half, however long the episodes might be. Even though I think there's YouTube Red now, which allows you to listen to videos on your phone while it's on standby mode. Do a little plug for YouTube there. But no, don't worry about it. I don't care. You can download it, listen to it wherever you want. Go ahead. But as for fetishes, don't. It's stupid. And it's just going to spiral out of control. First, these guys, they have a fetish for cornholes. Then all of a sudden, they want to get HIV on purpose because they think that's the only consequence that could possibly happen to them. Other than anal cancer and whatever. Disrupted hormones, endocrine systems. The list of dysfunctions goes on and on and on, but it goes from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, because there's no consequence. There's no stopping it. There's no break from it. And additionally, fetishes provide no sexual utility. It's not like it's going to help you procreate any better by fixating on this thing and assigning a sexual quality to it where there is none. And to treat something sexually where there is no possibility of sexual reproduction, no. It is a dysfunction. Dysfunction begets dysfunction. Let's do a couple of emails. Hello, CF, longtime listener. Really enjoy listening to your show to escape the filth that is my progressive high school. I can't really speak my mind there unless I'm speaking to my close circle of friends, whom I've shared your show with as well. Well, thank you. You have helped grow it, and for that, I am thankful. So, again, thanks a lot. It would not be possible without you. I say that a lot, but it wouldn't. It really wouldn't. I just have been hearing about this rapper and wanted to share it even though it's old. Her real name is Henri Dutoit, and she is from Cape Town, hence a lot of the African's language being mixed into her music. But a lot of her music is very, how to put it exactly, degenerate, I suppose, for the lack of a better term. She often depicts this weird vibe alongside quote-unquote players, like her brother being a pimp pretty much, and all the guys she hooks up with just because, and almost uses her childish looks and voice to grab the attention of people who probably are more into younger women. I just thought I'd send it over and see what you think of it, because I know here in America a lot of pop/rap music is becoming this way even more than it was back then. I remember it being more about the relationship rather than just borderline prostitution, although I could be wrong. I grew up listening to a mix of Russian and American music, so I'm not completely knowledgeable in this department. Hence why I am wondering your thoughts on where music is going these days. This is not a word I say very often. Most people are niggers. Most people are niggers. And I'm not talking about black people. I'm talking about the lowest form of person, which is a nigger. And I see niggers of all stripes, all ages, all colors, all sizes, all sexes. People who value nothing more than base, immediate pleasure. In other words, people I talk about on pretty much every episode of this show. Pop music is very immediate. It requires no investment. It's very easy to understand. It's very easy to enjoy. The people who make pop music, the people that consume pop music, are a reflection of where the common culture is. Economically, spiritually, morally. I'll put it to you this way. There's no difference between contemporary, popular country music and contemporary, popular hip-hop music. Very different demographics. Same worldview. Same morality. Except the white people might throw in something about white privilege and how boys can be princesses and girls can be soldiers. Which, by the way, is something that Taylor Swift said. Those exact words at some award show. Why the hell do you people like her? She's a treacherous skank. I know she has fashy aesthetics. If you're using that F word, you're another kind of F word. So, your apparent interest in the opposite sex I'm immediately skeptical of. And even if you are of heterosexual proclivity, you're placing the future of the white race in a woman, in women really, who wouldn't hesitate to turn your son into a male to female transsexual. The depth to which you will lower yourself to satisfy your horny level is disturbing. Okay, we got an email from Sweden here. Hey CF, I watched your show for a while, and I like what you're doing. As a Swede, I see this shit every day. This country is a total clusterfuck of degeneracy, and all people do is make it even more fucked. Or whining on Muslims for not accepting natural aristocrats as human beings. Last news, I heard was of journalists now getting special laws to protect them, allowing them to hate speech people without them being allowed to hate speak back. Why would you, goy? There is some resistance to this shit though, so everything isn't lost yet. But to the point, seeing all this shit makes me wonder if these people are even sentient. Just look at that dead stare in their eyes as they eat in front of the TV while weighing 600 pounds or talking about how great Jamal's black cock is for Sweden because we need to pay for the boomers' pensions, which they basically hashtag YOLO'd up. Fuck boomers. Yeah, I know what stare you're talking about, and I now know what it's called. It is called a fluoride stare. Continuing. Anyway, same stare I've seen in Zumalis and sand people here, like they are on an autopilot just to rape and destroy, like fat people eating, as if it is their nature, which it probably is. Same with Chinese people and their lack of empathy. I'm sure you've seen some videos showing examples of Chinese empathy. Anyway, my point is that these people look and act like zombies, programmed to do whatever is in front of them. Raping, destroying, or driving a delivery truck over a dying baby, same mentality. Like that African yelling for money just as he passed into Europe. Are these people even sentient? They don't seem human at all. More like a sort of plague sent from God or whatever. At least humans would have sentience after the original sin, eating the tree of knowledge and realizing they are naked. These people just destroy, laugh, spit. Thanks for doing what you're doing. Thank you for the email. Very entertaining. I didn't read this email before I said just a few minutes ago that some people are just born to lose. And I mean that. And this ties in with what you're saying here. A lot of people, they just seem to be, it's almost robotic. And like you put it, zombies, whatever you want, whatever word you want to apply to it, it means the same thing. They're not in control. They don't seem to be aware, and there would be no getting through to them, no matter what you'd say or do. I don't know why these people exist, these people who seem to be on autopilot. Maybe they exist so that we have a counterpoint to what real feeling, real humanity looks like. But are there people that can tell the difference? How many people can tell the difference between those that are on autopilot, those that are going through the motions, and real, genuine humanity? I don't know, but thank you for the email. Thank you very much for the email. And with that, I do believe I am out of time, so we'll call it here. Thank you very much for listening. As always, don't forget Common Filth Extra, episode 10, available for free on Bandcamp this week only. Check that out. Take advantage of it. So you all take care of yourselves, and I will talk to you later.
Grown, ain't I? The skinny nigga with the fro to the slightly bigger nigga who's a killer with the flow. Went from YouTube beats and SoundCloud, nigga. The only difference now is that I found Twitter. Fuck it, it's struggle rap, man. They never see the trouble that I'm going through. The way I sing, they think I live in bubble wrap. Fuck all that, even though I'm on some poppin' shit. With my niggas as my witness, I'm a nigga who can spit. Don't believe me? Overlooking my potential, I'm that poet to a phone, that poet was to a pencil. My mental is similar to that of a lion, and I'm the king of